Hi, everyone. Welcome to Momentum Boost. I'm your host, Adrienne Gold Davis. And as always, I'm honored and humbled that you chose to join the evening with us. So this month at Momentum, we're continuing to highlight the value of human dignity. And of course, it's one of Momentum's core values. And it's one so urgently needed in our world these days. Now, tonight, we want you to imagine how many things we take for granted are lacking in so many people's lives. The ability to shower, to bathe, to have hygiene products, to have soap, to wash your hands with, especially during this pandemic. And we who, since this pandemic, emptied all of the grocery stores of all the wipes and the cleaning products you could imagine. But what if you live in an environment, in a situation where you can't even clean yourself properly? You see, hygiene is not a luxury, it's a human right. And our guest this evening, Erin Zaikis, is on a mission to prove that to the world. Tonight, Erin will share with us how her experiences in India inspired her to support women entrepreneurs around the world. Erin is the founder of Rise by Sundara. It's an innovation fund for female entrepreneurs dedicated to stopping the spread of COVID-19 in their own communities. Now, previously, Erin was the founder of Sundara, an organization that recycled 1.8 million bars of hotel soap and employed 40 women full-time across India, Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa, and Myanmar. Erin is a Forbes 30 Under 30 winner and a winner of the Summit Series Impact and Diversity Fellowship. And prior to Sundara, Erin was the CEO of Israel, of the US, where she managed a $10 million aid program focused on disaster relief. And she led humanitarian missions to Nepal and Kenya, to Lesbos, to Greece, to Houston, Texas. But before you meet Erin, this incredibly wonderful, idealistic woman, I want you to take a look at this video.
My name is Sugan. All my life, I've lived in Ashte. We are one big family. Before Sundara, we struggled just to get by. I dropped out of school when I was 15 to support my family. After I married, the work grew harder. My husband didn't have a job for 2 years, and I couldn't provide for us all. We couldn't even afford soap, so my daughter was always sick and failing school. But all of that changed when Sundara came to the village. They taught us how to recycle soap, making them clean and new again. We gave this soap to thousands of children across India, teaching the next generation the importance of clean hands. I no longer struggle to support my family. My daughter never misses a day at school. We are healthy. We are empowered. I have found my purpose.
Erin, who are you? And how can I write your mother a letter and thank her? What on earth created a soul like yours? And the interest that you've had in the last 10 years, who are you? Where did you come from? How did this begin?
Yeah. First
Yeah.
of all, thank you so much for that introduction. And I love that video of Sugan so much. And it just reminds me of why I do what I do, for women like Sugan, for the billions of women in this world like Sugan. So who am I and where am I from? I'm originally from a town called Marblehead. It's a suburb of Boston. I grew up in a Reform Jewish community. I went to the University of Michigan, go blue. And I watched Slumdog Millionaire, the movie, one day when I was 19, and I was gripped by it, just fascinated. I couldn't really understand how children as young as 4 or 5 were just left to fend for themselves with no safety net, no one looking out for them. And it broke my heart. And even though the movie was fictional, I decided I have to go there. I have to go there and see this for myself. I think I was feeling bored at school. I didn't really fit in. It's a school of 40,000 people. So it felt really overwhelming. So I traded it for a country of 1.3 billion people. And I booked a flight to Mumbai, and I spent a few months living in an orphanage of girls who were abandoned when they were days old, 3, 4, 5 days old, left in dumpsters, left in train stations, all just because they were girls and because they would require dowries to get married, and thus they were unwanted. And so I worked for this fantastic organization that took these girls in and provided them with a safe place to stay, gave them access to education, food, love, and gave them some sort of trajectory of what they could do with their lives. And it was there that I really got to understand what my purpose was in life, and also understand how much I had been blessed with. And it's truly luck. You know, it was a birth lottery that I got to be born outside of Boston and not in Mumbai. And I started to feel very guilty about it. But then I realized with my privilege, I can do something other than feel guilty. And ultimately, after I graduated from university, I came back to India. I started Sundara, and that was sort of my introduction to this world.
So it sounds to me like you have had a quest for a very long time to ensure dignity for all, particularly for women. And so, we're talking about this whole notion of hygiene being a basic human dignity, but, an unavailable one in so many cases. So tell me the inspiration for the soap and this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. So after I graduated from university, I got a job in Thailand, and I was working with children who were trafficked in the sex trafficking industry. And it was a heartbreaking year and 8 months that I was there. And I felt very overwhelmed by the problem. And I thought to myself, who am I as this entitled white person to come here and tell these people what to do with their lives and what to do with their children when I have no understanding of the economic forces that force someone to sell themselves or sell their children into any type of sex slavery, domestic servitude, forced labor. And so, it was a heavy time. I was feeling overwhelmed. And I remember one day I went to a school and I met children, beautiful, smiling children, that did not have any soap. And I went to their school and they had sinks and they had classrooms and there was no soap. And I thought to myself, how is this possible? It was 2013. And I remember I brought them soap the next day and gave it to them and just said, okay, go wash your hands. And, they were scratching at it. They smacked it on their heads. They looked at it like we would look at some sort of alien substance. And I was 23 at the time. I thought to myself, how could someone live their entire lives without something that I'd never even thought about up until that day? I did a little research, and soap has been around for thousands of years, since the time of the Romans. And unfortunately, it's not something that's universal. And you can take a country like India, where 70 million people don't have access to soap, not even once a month. And because of that, children are dying. Children die of diarrhea, pneumonia. They suffer from eye infections, skin rashes, things that children here in the US and in Canada, they don't suffer from, because we do have universal basic access to things like soap.
Are you talking about village life more than city life, or is this ubiquitous in India?
I would say that it depends on the country, but in India, there are certainly areas where people lack access to things like soap and menstrual hygiene products, and it is not universal. But I would say that in rural areas, and 75% of our soap does go to tribal areas, that is considered rural. And so the problem is definitely magnified and worse in those areas. And sadly, it's a huge problem that doesn't receive the attention that it should.
You know, when I was growing up, there used to be this expression that people used to use, and I remember my mother saying it, cleanliness is next to godliness. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it's true that we treat people who have questionable hygiene in a really negative way, not always understanding that in some cases it simply isn't available. So what is this thing about recycling soap? I want to know how to recycle soap. We have a little clip. Can we watch that? And then I'll let you tease it out for me a bit.
Sure.
Yeah, well, let's put up that video, and you can see this whole soap recycling process. When I looked at this, I was aghast, had no idea.
We wanted to share our soap recycling process with you to show you how simple our solution truly is. Our Sundara employees who live within the communities we serve collect soap waste from our local hotel partners. We scrape the outside layer and wash the soap to ensure that it's sanitized, clean, and ready to use. After drying the soap, we shred it into fine little pieces, and we add a sanitizing mixture until it becomes a paste. We take the paste and mold it into a soap press to compact the new bars. From there, we package and seal the new soap bars, and voila, ready to be delivered to schools and medical clinics in local slum communities. And we do this every single month. So it's easy, right? Collect, scrape, wash, compact, and package. And there you have it. New soap, less trash, more treasure, more healthy children. Everyone wins.
Hold on. There we go. Was this your brainchild?
You know, when I was meeting all these children who didn't know what soap was, I thought to myself, there's not enough soap in this world. And upon some more research that I did, I realized I was wrong. There's actually enough soap in the world for 11 billion people. Just like there's enough food in the world. And yet, so much of that soap, unfortunately, is ending up in landfills, and the hospitality industry is a big culprit of the waste. I mean, everyone's had the experience of going to a 4 or 5-star hotel, using a bar of soap, and the next day housekeeping's just replaced that new bar of soap. And I often hear people say, oh, I took it with me. And I said, great, you can reuse it. That's wonderful. But we don't need that soap. That soap is really needed in places where people are living on less than $1 a day, because soap and clean hands is the difference between life and death, especially with children under the age of 5 who have weaker developing immune systems.
You know what struck me as I was watching that and thinking about it? In my own household, I won't mention any names, there are those here who will not use a bar of soap because, ew, I'll only use liquid soap. Can you imagine being picky and particular about your hygiene in that regard? What a luxury that is. What a first world problem that is.
Yeah.
So what can we do about it? What can we individually do about it? Are there organizations around the world that are doing this? Just tell me more about how we enable this.
Absolutely. So I will say that hygiene inequity is a problem here in the US, and I'm sure it is a problem in Canada as well. And as an example, just yesterday, my boyfriend was telling me that there was a homeless gentleman who was outside of a convenience store that he went to. And he said, "Here, come in with me and I can buy you something." And this man was like, "Okay, I only have one shot. I don't want to mess it up." And what did he buy? He bought 4 bars of soap.
Oh,
Um, and it just like, it hurt my heart a little bit, because I think to myself, I've spent the last decade trying to provide soap for people 7,000 miles away, but right here on the Upper West Side in New York, there are people that are living without it here. So, and I think that's gotten worse since COVID. Sundara ran a campaign for, when COVID hit last year, and it was our decision that we realized there are so many families struggling under the poverty line, families who have a single mother who can't afford necessities like soap, like dishwashing detergent, like diapers, like infant formula, like it. Well, yes, of course, this problem is more extreme in countries like India. Unfortunately, it's also a problem here. And so how can everyone help? I would say, when you see someone who is experiencing homelessness, or someone who just doesn't look like they have the opportunities to cleanliness that we do, ask if you can buy them something, and realize, the way we carry hand sanitizer around with us, and it makes us feel a little bit safer. They too deserve that feeling of dignity. And there are other organizations that do soap recycling as well in other countries. So the next time you're traveling, if you are feeling like up for traveling again, go and visit these places and go see their work and financially support them. I know that India is not open to tourists right now, but when it is, please let me know and we'll connect you with our partners and send you to India and have you meet some of the women who do this work. Something else that I would love to talk about, though, is that what makes Sundara really unique in terms of the soap recycling work that we've done is the fact that we accompany the work with fair wage employment. And that's something that I'm super passionate about as a woman.
and as a hallmark of dignity for certain.
Absolutely, because just as basic hygiene is important, just as access to menstrual pads is important, so too is access to financial resources. And money is power in all of these capitalist societies that we live in. So we make sure that the women that we employ are being paid a fair wage. And often that looks like 3 times the local wage. And that means they have enough money to put their children into school, take care of their aging parents, that they have enough money to buy a school uniform, which unfortunately is so often the reason why children can't attend otherwise free school. And I think that is so important to us because we've seen that when you invest in a woman, 9 times out of 10, she's investing in herself, her family, and her bigger community at large.
I don't know if you're aware, but the original premise of Momentum was that if you can impact a woman, a mother, you can impact her family. And if you can impact enough families, you can change communities. And if you can change enough communities, you can change the world. So we're very aligned. While you were speaking, I was thinking about, obviously, the principle of tzedakah, which most people translate as charity. But charity actually comes from the Latin word caritas, which is like loving. Whereas the word tzedakah in Hebrew comes from tzedek, which means righteousness. It's a righteous obligation. Every single human being, including those who are suffering from homelessness, have an obligation that 10% at least of their after-tax income is not theirs. It's for redistribution to ensure that the dignity is maintained of all individuals. So I noted in your bio that you worked for Israel, right? What did you do there?
So I ran their US office that was just starting out in San Francisco. And I led a few of the emergency missions. They had one in Nepal, one in Lesbos in Greece, one in Kakuma refugee camp, which is one of the largest refugee camps in the world. It's 200,000 people living in the middle of the desert in Kenya, and also in Houston in Texas for Hurricane Harvey.
Erin, it just seems to me that, you saw Slumdog Millionaire and it moved you.
Yeah.
It moved you. Now, I'm not sure if it moved you because you have a latently loving, giving soul, or whether you were raised in an environment where if you saw a problem, you meant to take action on it. But I think that when we watch those videos that you just showed us, for example, it awakens something that many of us move through our lives with sort of a willful blindness, right? And we are obligated as human beings to see what is in front of us. What are some techniques, methods that you would suggest to all of the thousands of women who are going to be watching this to open their eyes, to find their own epiphany? Where do you look?
So great. Wow. Okay. The first one is going to sound a bit morbid, but it would be, think about death. And I think about death very often. I had my own experience in Thailand, which kind of forced me into action. I got sick with dengue fever. My skin was hemorrhaging off and I was in the hospital. My boyfriend at the time decided this is an opportune time to dump her over email. So I was just like in the worst place. And I thought to myself, while I was in a hospital bed, not being able to move, my hair is falling out. What do I want to do with this like one short life? And if this is all said and done, can I feel proud of the person that I showed up as? And at that time in my life, the answer was really no. I was doing a lot of things that just weren't aligned with the person I wanted to be. And I think so often we get carried away with, oh, in 10 years from now, this, in 20 years from now, I will X. I'm working at this job I hate now, but it'll be over soon. And then Y? Well, what if that day never comes? And I am always thinking kind of short term about how, if tomorrow or today is my last day, will I feel proud of the way I was with people? Another thing that I want to say is like being the person that you want to be. Of course, you can go to India and book a one-way ticket to Mumbai and have that experience, but you can also start right here. And I, a few nights ago, I was walking my dog and stopped to talk to my doorman, and he shared with me a story about how his son was murdered at a house party, and it broke my heart. And it was just it reminded me of the shared humanity that we all feel, and how sometimes all people want is just someone to listen to them and care about their problems, and realize that even though we look different, we come from different homes, we're sort of shared in this like interchanging web of humanity. And we have to remind ourselves that I think so often the news is designed to get clicks and eyeballs, and it reminds us of our differences.
Yes.
But when you peel back the layers, you find out that most people want the same thing out of life. They want the same thing for their families. They want the same thing for themselves. They want to experience happiness, health, fulfillment. And just reminding yourself of that and doing something nice, because everyone, and I mean everyone, is suffering in some way, is fighting some battle that often looks invisible. So just reminding yourself of that, and starting with like a small mitzvah here and there, tzedakah here and there, and then it's going to become a bigger snowball effect. And like you said, with Momentum's, real ethos to first make those small changes, and eventually those changes will change the world.
I'm thinking about the famous quote from Hillel in the Ethics of Our Fathers. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? But if only for myself, what am I? And if not now, then when?
Yeah, absolutely. I was also thinking, so earlier this morning, I've just been on back-to-back interviews, virtually, of course. We have this new program with Sundara called Rise, where we called for we said, women of the world, what are your problems? We want to come next to you and support you with money and mentorship and resources and access to coaches and therapists and whatever it is that you need, but normally it's money. We want to make sure that you can go out and change your community. Because I think about how I got started, and it was pitching a competition that was funded by LinkedIn. I got a big check for $10,000. And I said, all right, I'm moving to India. I'm testing this thing out. But had there not been a company, a person believing in me, investing in me, I might not have had the chutzpah to like go ahead and fly there and make this thing happen.
Right.
So as I think about the next stage in my life, it's really all about how do I pay this gift forward to the next generation of female entrepreneurs, and frankly, female entrepreneurs who don't look like me, who haven't had the privileges that I've had. So there is such a demand. We have over 1,000 applications that we got on our website in less than a month, and we barely did any advertising for this. So we are swarmed by people that want to change their communities. And just this morning, we were speaking with this woman in Uganda, and she has a mission to make menstrual pads out of banana fiber and banana leaves in her community, because there's a real lack of access to menstrual pads. And so what's happening in this community is that men are preying on young girls to give them menstrual pads and saying that they can pay them back later. And how they pay them back is demanding the young women's bodies. And these parents are okay with it because for 9 months, when these girls don't have their period, the parents won't have to pay money for anything.
Okay.
And it's this terrible, heartbreaking system. And there's a young woman in Uganda who it's her mission to change this, and to do it by hiring women, paying them a fair wage, getting free pads to these children, preventing this cycle of abuse from happening. And someone could look at this and say, like, what's a Jewish woman doing with that? But at the end of the day, I really think that we are all connected, and it's our responsibility as a group, with resources, with the ability to travel, with education, to now go give that to people that don't have that, and people who are finding themselves in such unfortunate circumstances. And so that's
Listen, Erin, on the contrary, as Jewish women, that is what we're supposed to be doing. This is the trajectory of the Jewish women from the very beginning of that's our strength, and it's our capacity. This is a kind of touchy thing to say, but in fairness, you are young, you're 31, you're altruistic, you're single, you don't have kids at the moment. And I'm hearing sort of in my inner ear, women, my age, women with kids saying, what am I supposed to do? I don't have enough time. There's a great rabbi who once said, we don't grow up, we give up. So I think that what you're doing should not only be the purview of young women who see a change that needs to be happening in the world and do it. How do I activate? How do you think I activate women your mother's age, women my age, women with young children? And do you think you can do it through the kids? Do you think you can engage the children in order to engage the mothers?
That's a great question. I think that as I get older, I realize that to make change, women need to support other women. It really irritates me when I hear a woman saying, I'm not a feminist. That makes me angry. When I hear women who aren't standing up for women to be able to protect their bodies, to make economic decisions for themselves. We have to stop hating other women, and we have to, and I think that internalized misogyny runs deep.
Sure.
Runs so deep. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she was saying how Hillary Clinton just wasn't likable. And I said, excuse me, would you say that about a man? And we have to call each other out, because we've been bred to hate each other and to view each other as competition. And this is what allows the patriarchy to keep going. And so I think that for women my mom's age, what we have to do is just lift up our daughters, lift up the women around us, offer employment to other women, be supportive to other women. Like, women need that. And I would also say, like, to reach across the lines and understand what it is to try your best to understand what it is to be an immigrant woman in America, to have the experience of a Black woman in America, a trans woman in America, a woman who's living in the South, a woman who's living under the poverty line, because there are so many challenges that women face that I'm not even aware of. And so I'm just trying to educate myself and carry that like generous spirit. And I think until I die, I will be fighting for women here and women around the world, because we just need it. And time and history and politicians have not been kind to us. So we need to be kind to us.
So I obviously don't have to convince you of Momentum's ethos, as you mentioned. This is who we are. The ability to empower ourselves and one another to raise up our sister, wherever she is, in the way of doing so, where we search for unity without uniformity, where we look to see what unites us rather than what divides us, because there will always be a divide. But when we can search for what unites us, when I think back to this theme of dignity and the dignity that you help afford women around the world, what resonates the most for me is what you said earlier. You peel back that layers of the onion, as you said, we are all souls, human beings who are precious and beloved and individuals. And we all need to care for our physical bodies, which house these special souls, these eternal souls. And we have to hold each other up and ensure that we're not walking by blindly when we see it. If you had something final that you would like to share with the women who are listening to you, what might that be right now?
What would I say? Well, I would say that it actually all starts with self-love, which is probably not what I thought I was going to say. But for me, COVID has been a challenging, I was going to say year, but it's gone on. Year and a half,
yeah,
and counting. And it's been a lonely time, and it's been a time where I don't get to travel. And so I'm stuck in traveling my thoughts, and so often I realize the person that holds me back is me. And the person that is the meanest is me. And I would never talk to any of my friends or anyone in the world the way I talk to myself. And so I've started working with a coach and a therapist, trying to understand, like, who is that voice and how do I get rid of her? Because she's really not serving me. And so I would say that almost everything in life boils down to radical self-love. And I would say to every woman listening, you are deserving, you are worthy of love, regardless of what you look like, regardless of what you've done or you haven't, regardless of who you're with, anything. This world is designed to make you feel like crap about yourself. If you read any news outlet, if you read any magazine, that's how we sell things here, but like, I'm just out here and I want to tell every woman, you deserve love. Give it to yourself, and then you'll be, radiating on a different energy vibration, and you'll start attracting really good things into your life. And I know I'm sounding pretty woo-woo here, but
you are not. You are not. Erin, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's an incredible conversation. I hope you'll join me again in the future. You are phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Adrienne.
Thank you for being here. Wow, what a woman. Boy, an aspirational person for us to all look to and emulate. And for me, Adrienne Gold Davis, and all of us here at Momentum, as we learn and grow together, as we take action together, as we open our eyes and see what needs doing around us, remember, the highest form of wisdom will always be kindness. Good night, everybody.